Good evening and welcome to the fun-filled December 17th regular meeting of Council. It's my understanding that Noah's started his boat out in the backyard here under construction, so we'll be all ready to go soon. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territories upon which we gather with gratitude. We have 4 sets of minutes. Can we take them all at once? Is there any changes that anybody's noticed? So can I have a motion to accept all 4 by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Greer. All in favor? That's carried. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that December 17th council meeting agenda be approved? Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Delegations. We have 2 delegations today. The first one being the Parksville Lawn Bowling, conversion of bowling green to artificial surface. Would you gentlemen like to come up? And you have 10 minutes. And I promise not to start the clock ticking until you sit down and are all comfortable.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, members of the city administration. We're here to talk about a project that we realize this is the first stage of the approval process, and what we'd like to do is just go through a little bit of background to the project. My name is Trickett. I am the president of the Parksville Lawn Bowling Club, and with me is...
My name is Martin Fereday, and I look after the existing green.
A little bit of background on the club. It was established in 1991, and they started playing bowls there in 95. And Parksville is actually the largest club on the island. It's the 4th largest in the province. And I guess we're blessed with having a lot of seniors in our community. We currently have 183 full members, 45 social members, and we have 1 natural grass green, which is the original one that was put in 93 through 95. Our bowling season is late April to the end of September, and if we look at the other larger clubs in the province, Stanley Park, Richmond, North Vancouver, they all have 2 greens. And we started out looking at 2 greens and realized it just wasn't going to work. The club is run entirely by volunteers, and we've been a tenant at 149 Stafford for more than 25 years.
I get to talk about the problems that we're currently having and what the reason for this project proposal is. Damage due to overuse on the existing grass green is a problem, and because we're so busy, we have limited opportunity to make repairs. The increasing amount and the cost of irrigation, hotter and dry summers, the irrigation also impacts the overall turf grass growth. We have difficulty getting enough volunteers for greens maintenance. As Athol noted, we are a volunteer association. As time goes, there's greater likelihood of restrictions on the use of the green, which doesn't keep the membership very happy. We have limited potential to add any new programs based on 1 green with its limited uses, and we have a lack of plan to improve that green in the future.
So we started a study in December of 2017, and the purpose was to look at future green options. And we started out by establishing a focus group, and got feedback from 10 members that sat on that focus group. We ended up studying 5 options, making some visits over to the mainland, speaking to suppliers, and eventually came to the realization that the best way forward was to convert our grass green to an artificial surface.
So the advantages of that artificial surface are major reduction in maintenance, including water use. Our reliance on volunteers for green crews is significantly reduced. Consistent and good quality playing surface will be available to us. The season can be extended from the current grass green earlier in the spring and into the fall and even into the winter. We see the ability with the additional time being available to be able to increase numbers of people. We do have a demand for people to bowl. We can offer more programs to the general public, and there's around 100,000, there's reductions in our maintenance costs as well as our volunteer time, even allowing for the future replacement of the surface of the artificial green.
A carpet on a green typically lasts 12 to 15 years. So we're basically using money that was previously part of our operating budget for maintenance of the green, putting it into a fund whereby we'd be able to replace the carpet when it is due. The current status, our AGM was on November the 4th. This proposal was presented to club members, and we had unequivocal support to proceed to the next phase. The estimated cost of this project is around $500,000. And for us, the next step was talking to our landlord to get approval before starting a fundraising campaign. So we're looking at raising the funds during an 18-month campaign. The actual construction itself of the green would only take 10 to 12 weeks, because it's a case of digging out what's there at the moment, putting in a new sub-base, and then putting the carpet on top. So it can be achieved in a shortish period of time, but obviously it's taking the time to get the funds in place so that we can proceed. Thank you for your time, and I believe we are in time.
Thank you very much. That was quite interesting. Do we have any questions for the delegation? Councillor Greer? He broke it. The engineer was just about ready to make his appearance.
No, I forget what I was going to say. I had played a couple of games on the grass there, and I lost one and won one. And before I go on to any other questions, I'll challenge the mayor at this time for a game this spring. And he'll be in trouble because I always put together a good team, and I've got one of our members from the city here in mind because he's a good player, but I'm not going to mention his name yet. Anyways, putting in the artificial turf, does that make it easier? You don't have the rolls like you do with the grass?
Yeah, I mean, basically, experience on other artificial surfaces are such that, you know, they, instead of needing a crew of, what's your volunteers of what, 14 odd people? Yep. It can be done by one person, because what you have to do is vacuum any debris off the surface, and that's basically it in terms of maintenance of the green.
So it is a lot flatter and a lot easier to play on then.
It's a lot flatter, a lot easier, and some people will, you know, would compare it to, you know, like the QB indoor.
Yeah. I like the idea of the rolls on the green personally, but I think it's something that has to be done for sure. No, I would certainly support it.
Actually, over the last 20-odd years within British Columbia, there haven't been any new grass greens put in, but there have been at least 3 conversions from grass to artificial.
Part of the times, I guess.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. You talked about the cost a little bit and the fundraising over an 18-month period. When would you expect to begin the fundraising campaign? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay, we'd expect to begin it once we have approval from the city.
And so basically that's your ask this
Yep.
evening. You anticipate that it'll take about an 18-month campaign time, and then it's a 10 to 12 weeks construction. And from what I understand, the season's April to September. So are you looking at having this for the 2020 season, or would it be? I'm just trying to figure out some math and everything. So.
Yeah, we'd be looking to have it built in 2020. It can't be built totally in the off-season. Some work can be done in the off-season, but some of it is warm weather.
So probably
needed.
October of 2020.
No, hopefully the spring.
Okay.
It could get deferred to the fall. It depends how the fundraising goes. I mean, we can't predict that, but we do need some warm weather to finish it. It's that process of laying that carpet down needs warm weather.
Thank you.
Councillor France?
Thanks. I think that actually answered my questions was going to be regarding the start of the fundraising campaign. But going on that, what are your plans for the fundraising campaign over those 18 months?
Well, what we obviously, the last time the club had to raise funds was 2003. And what we've done is we've put together a committee, and we're just in the process of putting together a database as to which foundations, organizations, potential government grants that we can access, and obviously got to be a meshing between what we're trying to achieve and what they support. So we're at the very, very early stages. But as I said, we will not make any approaches until we know that we have approval.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. Okay, I have another question that's a little bit off topic from the rest, and that is from an environmental perspective. This product is rubber-based, so plastic. Do you know what happens when the little particles do break off, which they do, and when it comes to going down the storm water, into the storm water? Do you know, like, how do you keep it clean? Or perhaps the director of engineering might know that.
Maybe I'll start off by talking about what happens at the moment. I mean, obviously it's a grass green. It has herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers put on top of it. All of that will be done away with. So there's a positive impact in terms of the environment. And obviously using no water on the green is also a positive impact on the environment. As far as maintaining the existing green is concerned, the way it is structured is it's I guess it's a porous base in which there's a piping network that collects the water that drains through and discharges it to the storm sewer. There is a layer at the top that is, was it 25 millimeters? 1 inch? Yep. And that is made out of recycled tires, so it's a rubber base on which this carpet is laid.
Just if I could supplement that, the surface is actually porous, so there's no surface runoff per se. All the water is soaked into the ground. There's an underground drainage system. So if there are any particles shed by the surface, it should be trapped in the gravel layer that separates the surface from the drainage.
Good. That's what I wondered. Thanks.
Any other questions for the delegation? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Oh, Councillor Patterson. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and it's not a question. At this point in time, can I refer this to staff, or can we put a motion forward to give approval to the Lawn Bowling Club to begin their fundraising campaign, or should it go to staff? That's my question to our CAO first.
Councillor Patterson. Staff, both in Parks and in the administration, have met with the representatives from the Lawn Bowling Club already, and we suggested that they come to council to ask for permission. The Parks Department doesn't have any objection to the artificial turf being put in, so it's entirely, if council wishes to allow this to proceed, then you can certainly give them permission. If you want us to look into it further, we can, but we have met with them already.
Thank you very much, our CAO. So based on that, can I put a motion forward this evening that we give council's blessing to move forward with a fundraising campaign by the Lawn Bowling Club?
I'll second it.
Just set a point of order. We did request that we have notice of motions, and we passed a motion previously to that. So if we're going to be putting a motion forward, it should go through the procedure that we have in place.
Rebuttal?
Go ahead.
I am entitled and can, at any point in time, put forward a motion.
Not, just so we're clear on this, the motion that we made and passed said that if you do that, you have to ask for a majority of the council before you make the motion. So if you want to do that, that's fine. We can live with that. So you have to make a motion that they accept your motion, and that you can move the motion into this meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship, for clarification on more procedures. So at this point in time, I'm asking council for a majority to put forward my motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I think before bringing the motion forward, it'd be nice to have a little bit of time to take in some of this information and go and see the site ourselves and speak with them about what they're asking for. So, and also I do think it's important that we follow the procedure that we set in place. So, based on that, I wouldn't be supporting your motion this time.
Any other? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Oh, carried. You had the majority. So now you can bring your motion.
So at this point in time, I'm asking council to give their blessing to have the Lawn Bowling Club proceed with their fundraising campaign.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greer. Discussion? Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, Your Worship. Just a comment on it. I feel it's important to give the approval as quick as possible, because if they're going to get on a fundraising campaign, I think the earliest that they can get onto it without further delay is important. Plus, the other comment I wanted to say from an environmental point of view is that they pointed out not only the lack of herbicides and pesticides that they'll be using any longer, there is going to be a huge water conservation saving that's going to be found by switching over to artificial turf. So with that in mind anyways, with me and my water, and I'm happy that anybody's saving water. So I would definitely support giving approval to this project at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approval? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. The Humphrey Road Residents for request for traffic calming on Humphrey Road.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors and city administrators. I'm Margot Southall. I'm one of the residents here with other residents of Humphrey Road, and our concern is a safety one. It's been an ongoing issue, and we're seeking your support and help and some practical solutions to that. As you'll be aware, Humphrey Road is a popular road for commuters, deliveries, service vehicles, heavy trucks, construction. Parksville is a busy place. So one of the busiest blocks, as you see on the map above here, we've got Pym on your right going through to the highway. Humphrey is that collector road which people are using coming from Hurst, up Wrens as well, and the busiest block is between Wrens and Church. So what we're looking at, there are three really factors that are combining to the responses I got when I did the survey, with 34 households who responded, yes, we need some traffic calming, who each shared incidents, accidents. I've witnessed them myself on the crosswalk there, children on bicycles, young families, as well as those with mobility issues. A recent one where a child was trying to cross the crosswalk. Cars are just speeding because it's a wide open road. There's no medians, nothing stopping them. Slammed on the brakes, cars behind, we've got a lot of traffic, 4,000 vehicles a day was stated in the report of 2008. It's in page 13 of your Master Transportation Report on the city website. So we've got the volume issue, the speed issue, and as I said, this child's on the crosswalk. Car not slowing down, suddenly sees the child, slams on the brakes, cars behind take, averting action, ended up on the front lawn of a neighbour. I'm walking down the street, and the car's coming across on the sidewalk, because the sidewalks are just a rolled curb, quite low, so that we're really not feeling protected. It's like walking beside a busy highway. The road is being used as a secondary highway, and so we're really seeking practical solutions. I've already talked with city engineering staff, and my late husband was in Vaughan's position in another city, so I got guided tours of many of these structures over the years, and so I knew something that could be done and that we needed to start the ball rolling on that. So as I said, the speed issue, speed is not something new in Parksville. It's an ongoing issue. I phoned the OPP after seeing this incident with the child and the accident that happened, and their reply was, when you have an open road like that, you're going to have speeding issues. They could have a car there all day giving tickets. So they said, if you're going to do something, it's going to have to be something structural. In other words, it comes down to concrete. So we're also concerned the increasing number, the percentage of heavy trucks. I don't sit in my front room counting trucks all day, but I personally, everyone has to go and get their mail. I've been hit by gravel. I've seen trucks just go right across the circle, the traffic circle, right across the pavement, right across the bump outs. They're low, not look to their left, and people are shaken after those experiences, intimidated. Everyone I spoke to in the survey, which was over 2/3 of respondents, in fact, everyone who replied with the survey, I went door to door, it was a positive yes, and only 2 no comments who felt conflicts of interest. So, as I said, we've got these trucks also as well, a large percentage of heavy trucks, construction vehicles. There is a sign on Pym saying a limit of 9,000 K, but speaking to city staff, I was told that it can't be enforced because we're the only road that has it. So someone else would need to, another street would have to have that designation for it to be able to be enforced. So the suggestion in the handout that I provided, and I hope you have a copy, was that perhaps the designation could also be on Chestnut Street, as the residents there have a history of also the same concern, and then that way it would be enforceable. So it's one of the options. So each one of these factors, but put together, as I said, when I went door to door, everyone had these experiences to share, and they felt intimidated, frightened walking down their own street. Because, as I said, you've got speeding vehicles, large trucks in very close proximity. We do have, and I was surprised on the number of young families on the street. We think we're all retirees here, but we're not. Trying to get out of your driveway in rush hour traffic, as I try to every day, is, it's Russian roulette. So it's definitely an ongoing concern. We're hoping for some, as I said, some structural solutions. So the past, the efforts, you know this more than I do, the traffic circle with the New Carey subdivision, Cedar Ridge was put in there, some of the issues. And I'm sure it's helped, but we need to go further. The raised crosswalk, I'm sure, has helped as well, but speed bumps in many cities have not been found to be the answer. I looked at studies of cities across BC and Alberta and Ontario, Halifax as well, and they listed, the type of traffic calming structures they'd put into place, how effective they were, how much they cost. So all of these things have been really helpful in narrowing it down, because as I realize, it's not an endless budget. So what's practical, what could be implemented in a short time frame as well. I first contacted city engineering staff in August and then met with the traffic technologists in September. I was provided with the survey that I took around the residents in October, so that's completed now. As I said, unanimous concerns with fear and their personal safety. So safety of motorists and residents need to be in that balance. So what can we do about it? After reading these studies that I just mentioned, I don't pretend to be an expert. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a traffic calming specialist. I just have access to Google and city staff that I know across different cities who I've asked, what's working? So the raised, just like in Hurst, when you drive down Hurst, you see those raised medians, in the centre. You see some traffic circles. Otherwise, it's an open highway. The entrance on Chestnut Street, you've got that raised median, planter going into the street. What we're looking at here, it gives the drivers a focusing tool, because it's well signposted on the street. It's well signposted, there's a speed bump, you've got a traffic circle coming, there's nothing wrong with the city signage. It's not being critical here, we're looking for solutions. But again, they need that kind of focusing, visual reminder, because after a while the signs just become background, like trees and everything else. They just don't notice it anymore. And many of the residents said they're using that speed, it's just a raised crosswalk really, a speed bump. They're using it for entertainment, they bottom out, they airlift, or you get this slamming on the brakes and really noisy acceleration. This is a purely suburban residential road. There's no commercial properties. As I said, this is a suburban area with young children, older, school not far away. We're looking for help. So again, it'd be up to, no doubt, discussions with the engineering department and finance. In the first week of September, the speed radar was placed in the green space by the mailboxes there to get some data, because it's 2008 figures that we're looking at for the number of vehicles a day. Picture 4,000 cars and trucks going past your front door each day. That's a lot of traffic. Add that to the speeding, add that trucks. As I said, something needs to be looked at for protection of our residents is what we're asking. And just the livability. Slamming on of brakes is not something you want to hear sitting in your house. And the loud acceleration, all the mufflers and everything else, but trucks are especially noisy. As I said, this is a purely residential area. What can we do? So we're looking for practical solutions, and just to get the ball started. We know it's a process, but there are some possibilities that wouldn't be terribly expensive and could be done relatively quickly. One of the city staff mentioned that some companies, now please correct me if I'm wrong, can provide medians on a trial basis, so we can get an idea if that's working or not. The other, and I don't have a photograph of it, but they're called chicanes, is that correct? They're like a bump out on the street, and you can get those ones that are kind of flexible. If you've ever seen them near construction sites, it looks kind of like a yellow paddle, and they're kind of done in a shape as a bump out from the sidewalk, which means the driver has to do a bit of focusing, a bit of curving here, and not just, pedal to the metal, which is what we're seeing on a daily basis. It's just the livability factors and safety is very much at the forefront. We're looking for help.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Greer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not a really fan of the medius in the middle of the road. I'm not too fancy about street lights either, but I think probably, and the 40 kilometer speed limit won't help an awful lot. I was responsible about 8 years ago having the 40 miles on Chestnut Street.
Right.
And from the residents I've heard from, it hasn't helped a great deal. But a three-way stop would be the answer at that corner, just on the other side of the raised bump.
The corner of Wren's. We're looking for something that will help the traffic in terms of not just come rearing around the corner, but they'll need to actually focus around something. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, well,
of?
I think the three-way stop would be the quickest way.
So they
just like they
come to
have
a quick
behind,
stop.
yeah, just like they have behind over Wadey. They have a three-way stop there, and it works fine.
Yep, it's possible. You know, we're just looking, we don't want the heavy braking and acceleration either, but they certainly do need to come to a complete stop. And a lot of them aren't. They're just continuing around the corner. So
If I come up with any more brilliant ideas, I'll let you know. Thank you.
all right. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I live not far from there. I'm on just behind Pym, but I take that route all the time. So,
Yeah,
so I know it can be a little crazy there. People just go flying over that speed bump. And but one thing I'd like to say is I agree with Councillor Greer 100% that if you had a three-way stop there, you would have 2 to 3 cars potentially at that three-way stop. It would calm things down dramatically.
So as you come to the crosswalk, there would be a stop sign. You'd actually have to come to a complete
On
stop.
both sides,
And then one on Wren's and then one coming from the opposite way.
Yeah.
That's what you're thinking. So again, what can we do beyond that? Because once they go past the crosswalk till they get to the traffic circle intersection at Church, the speeding that's going on there, because that's still, they can get to a pretty good speed. Is there something we can do, not just I'm talking about the middle of the road, but is there something as they come maybe off Church, off the traffic circle, some kind of filtering
I think
medium?
there could be lots of
Bump
things
out.
to look at. Of course, that's a question for engineering and
Yeah.
everybody else. But
Yeah.
but I just, I feel that that's a quick and fast solution to it. Potentially, I'm not sure about the cost, but obviously that would have to be examined too. So.
And I think that would be a good beginning. Just as I said, I'm saying once they get past that point, what kind of focusing tools can we provide to them there? Because that's where we're seeing the issue. As soon as they get round that corner, even if they've stopped at Wren's, the corner of Wren's, they're still really accelerating till they get to the traffic circle. So in between there, we've got a risky spot.
Councillor O'Brien.
I totally understand what you're talking about. I walked through your neighborhood last week anyways, and again on the weekend, and you've got a double whammy going against you. You've got the Wembley Mall,
Yep.
and you've got the access to Church Road.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of people use Humphrey as a shortcut.
Yes, they do.
There's no question about it. And so the thing is that it was not designed to be a shortcut, but it inevitably has become that.
Yeah.
And that is one unfortunate situation that's happened in our city as of late, and in defense of engineering, of course, built roads to carry a lot of traffic to get them from one to A to B very efficiently and as quickly as possible. And that's unfortunate now because, and that was all well and good when Parksville was just a city to drive through. Now I feel that with all the residential growth that we have and all the families and all the rest of it that are coming here, we are the destination. And we have to stop this cutting through residential neighborhoods just so they can get faster to the mall or faster to Church Road to take them up into the Coombs area in Arrington. And so the thing is that we have to take that into consideration when we're designing our arterials, anyos, to carry all this traffic. We have to make sure that people are willing to take an extra 5 to 10 minutes to get to their destination, and everything doesn't have to be a rush. So that's a mindset that we have to change.
I know it is. We're being used as a secondary highway.
Right.
Save the lights on 19A. Let's, I got to go out to Coombs, Arrington today. Let's, floor it through here. And we are just a through road, a cut through. It wasn't what the road was originally built for. At one point it was a no through.
Right. And,
so now suddenly our homes have become a highway.
as a question, is there parking along the road allowed? Is there parking along Humphrey?
There's no
Is there-
lines for it or anything.
So parking is allowed along Humphrey Road then?
You don't see cars parked there, though, do you?
Well, I noticed that. That's why I asked, because usually
Because the cars
if there's a bike lane,
It's
usually
risky.
they don't park.
There's no bike lane between Wrens and Church, only between Pym and Wrens, and on the other side of the road. And as I said, nobody parks their car on the road because, as I said, it'd be like parking your car on the 19A.
Yeah, and I get that.
It's going to get whacked.
But when cars park on the side of the road, it does have a tendency to slow down the traffic as
So
well.
putting maybe some dotted lines along that designates it as parking?
Something to encourage parking maybe on the side anyways would help as well, because the
Yeah.
thing is, we have residential neighborhoods that are saying they don't have parking on the road, and they're very upset with us, of course, because we put in bike lanes or whatever. But the thing is that those cars parked on the road does slow the traffic down, because the traffic have to worry about the driver's side opening up his door.
And that's a good point, because one of the residents said, what do we do when we have visitors and so on? You know, they're intimidated to put their car on the road. But again, the reality is it's a wide road and there is space for it.
Right.
So how do we sign? Do we put dotted lines? I mean, as I said, I'm not an engineer. What are the options in which to do that is something we could look at, I hope.
Well, maybe perhaps it's just like if you put up signs that said residential parking allowed on the street, something like that would be to encourage people to park on the street, because really, if they are allowed. But I walked down there and I was looking for signs all over, and I thought it was awfully odd that nobody was parked there.
Yeah.
But I understand why.
But they're fearful of having their car dinged.
Okay.
Because of the speed and because of the heavy trucks. We've got tractor trailers going down there, car trailers. It's a collector road, but the collector roads are zoned for cars and for service vehicles. They are not zoned for trucks. Arterial roads like Church Road are. So there you've got the problem. A truck who wants a fast route doesn't want to go all the way to Church to Wembley, all the way up to Wright Road to the lights, and then come back down 19A. What are they going to do? Cut through there.
Right. And they do. Okay.
And they do. So unless we can have enforcement of the truck weight, we're going to have the gravel trucks and the concrete trucks, the tractor trailers, Canadian Tire tractor trailer going down there. People are going to be hit by gravel. People are going to be frightened, continuously. So as I said, that's the other thing. Can we have another road with also that protection, that sign, the truck weight limit, so that it can be enforceable?
Right. Councillor Wilson.
That's what I was going.
Okay.
And
Any other questions?
sorry, whether or not trucks have to use that route. Can they not use another route?
They don't have to, but I bet they're under pressure, and we're waiting for that concrete, hurry up, right? So, I mean, I thought I'll phone the trucking company. So how can it be enforced? They say, well, it can't be enforced, so they're going to ignore that.
Some municipalities that I've lived in do have that rule, the trucks can't go through, so
Well,
I don't know how it
what I
works
was
here.
told. City engineering staff told me that it can't be enforced because we're the only road. And there'd have to be another road in Parksville with that signage for it to be enforceable. So that's why I had in the handout the suggestion of, you pick a road, but I just brought up Chestnut because that was, part of a study as well.
Okay. Councillor Frass.
Can we get staff to elaborate on that? Is that so they can't enforce that vehicle weight because no other road has that weight limit on it? Is that correct?
If I may, Your Worship, through Councillor Frass, my recommendation on this would be we've had some really good conversations through engineering with the residents, and the survey's in, as you say, the survey's in, and it looks like there's a consensus on the street that this needs to be looked at, and we've already started. Engineering's already started some data collection, and the data's starting to build up on it now. So basically, the request is in process right now through engineering. We have a traffic calming policy that we've adopted, 5.18. So we're using that policy, and basically that outlines kind of a systematic process we can go through, and we look at everything. We'll take a look at the speed limit signs, the weight signs. We'll also be looking at many different aspects, such as education, all the way up to all the way up to putting curbs in and bump outs and medians and all that stuff, so that the process is, the policy is designed for engineering to have a really good look at that using empirical data and figuring out what is the best answer for this street, because I think it's true that not every street is the same. Not every collector is the same. This collector happens to be right through a residential area, so that is also something that's taken into consideration. So my recommendation would be to allow the process to continue. We're looking forward to continuing to work with the residents along Humphreys, and the policy is very clear in outlining. And if there's any, as we get through it, staff will bring back a report to council that identifies what we've discovered and what direction we think we should go with it. And that's really helpful for you, because that allows you to understand, are we talking about a major investment here, or is it something smaller that we can try initially and then progress to a more major capital kind of solution if we need to go there. And we may need to go there. I'm not saying that we may need to go there, but this allows us to systematically go through and get our recommendations to you so you can see what's going on the street.
Councillor O'Brien.
If I may, through the chair, to the Director of Engineering, what time frame would that be before a presentation is for council?
If I may, Your Worship, so it's over 2 weeks now we've been collecting data. So I would suggest we'll be collecting a little bit more data up to Christmas, and then early into January we'll start to look at the different parameters, like the speed and the volume and the type of data. And I would say in the spring we should be able to bring a report back to you that give you a summary of what we've found. We'll have some more input with the residents, of course, and then we'll be able to bring to you what sort of strategy would work best for Humphreys, which could be anywhere from doing some changes to the signage, chicanes that was mentioned, or right up to curb changes there and medians. But we'll have had a good look at it then.
Okay. I'd like to move this along if we can, so quickly, very quick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to the engineer. As a stopgap and get this thing started right away, it's a very inexpensive situation to put in 3 stop signs, is it not? And have a 3-way stop and see how that works out right away?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Greer, my recommendation would be to not do that until we know that it's going to make a positive difference there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Mr. Russell, would you please give us a background on the first issue?
Sure, if I may, Your Worship. For council consideration this evening is issuance of a development variance permit and development permit at 175 Weld Street. This is a follow-up report, so since the November 18th meeting, required notification has now occurred. As such, council must therefore at this meeting provide persons present in the gallery with an opportunity to speak on the matter, and shall take all written submissions into consideration. With respect to this application, no written submissions have been received.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in the audience on this matter? Please come down and give us your name and your civic address for the record.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Bruce Foden. I reside at 177 Weld Street, which is the property that abuts the property in question and that's up for redevelopment. And basically, I'm wondering if you could help me with some of the terminology that I received a letter in the mail here that describes things which are being requested as a variance from the bylaws, but I'm not too familiar with the terminology. For example, there's a request to limit the setback from the way I read this, the new building is going to physically adjoin the existing building where I live. And I would like to know if that's really what's intended. And also the reductions in boundary setbacks for parking and so on. So that's my question.
And they're valid questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Russell, could you give us a quick...
If I may, Worship, I'll do my best. The building itself, the allowed setbacks are already 0, so there is not a setback requirement for the building themselves from either side lot line or the front property line. There is a 4-meter required setback from the rear, from the lane. What these relaxations are primarily is that typically we would have a distance that the parking spaces have to be from the property. And in order to provide enough parking spaces, they've requested a relaxation to how big that sort of buffer is around the edge of the parking area. So that's why it's quite a long list. It looks a bit overwhelming, but essentially that's the main variance. And the other one is just the position of the driveway. Normally the driveway has to be a set distance from an adjacent property line, and this allows the driveway to be abutting the property line.
So that means that when I'm looking out from my balcony, I'm looking right into the adjacent property over the driveway.
If I may, Worship, there will be a fence between the properties, and there's a fence between them.
A fence, okay. That's why I asked for clarification, because it looked to me as though the new building is going to physically be attached to the existing building.
I mean, it's a fully standalone building, but it is able to go. There's a slight. It's offset a little bit on the sides, like there's a walkway down the side. But the upper level does go, sorry, I'm just trying to look at the plan here. There is space between the building itself and the adjacent properties, but they're not asking for relaxation. They technically, without a variance, could build right up to the property line. Many of the commercial buildings are like that, where they have, firewalls between them, but in this particular case, they're not building it right up to the edge. They're stepping it back about a pathway width.
Okay.
Does that help?
I appreciate that clarification.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question? I can.
No.
Okay.
We're
Thank
fine.
you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Now I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Any discussion? Councillor Wilson?
The only thing that, the thing I want to mention is the parking on Weld, which is something that I think we should be thinking about. It's limited, so I guess the concern is, will there be enough off-street parking for all the visitors, for all the people going? I have a dentist on Weld, and sometimes I go around and around looking for a parking spot. So it's just an issue that I think is coming up with more and more development on there.
Well,
so perhaps to the Director of Planning, through your worship, to the Director of Planning, how will that work with parking as we move forward?
Has this asked for reduction on number of parking spots? Is this application?
Your Worship, there isn't a reduction in the required number of parking spaces. They meet the requirements. So that they're, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Mr. Russell?
So the next application this evening, this is a follow-up report for a development variance permit and a development permit. The purpose of the variance is to vary the configuration of buildings to allow for a 15-unit patio home strata lot development on the subject property. Since the council meeting on November the 19th, required notice of the variance has occurred. Therefore, at this meeting, council must give those persons in the gallery an opportunity to speak to the matter of the variance, and shall take written submissions into consideration. As of this evening, one written correspondence was received, which was distributed to council.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Mr. Pastor, if you can give us your address as well, please.
My name is Al Pastors. I live at 211 Lodgepole Drive. I'm the president of Our Savior Lutheran Church congregation, which abuts this property. And I wrote a letter by email. I didn't get an acknowledgement whether it was received or not. So was that the letter you're referring to?
We have it here in front of us now.
I just want to clarify something, and that is on this stand of trees, if they're not removed, at least get rid of the half-dead ones and clear out the underbrush, because that is the underlying problem, is that in a heavy wind, these trees, if not this winter, next winter, are going to come down, and they're going to come down on top of vehicles. The underbrush in this stand of trees of about, I don't know, 20, 25 trees, it's fairly heavy, and what is happening is there's folks or kids or somebody partying hardy in amongst the shrubs. So if they don't want to take down all the trees, at least take down the dead ones. There's about 6 of those. And clear out the underbrush so it's more formal and will allow a sight line through the trees and therefore preclude the attendance of the activities that go on there on the weekends. Any questions?
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Mr. Pastors, for coming before us. I was at the Lutheran Church not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, so I'm actually understood and everything where you're coming from. So my question to you is, if you had your way, you would remove all the trees, or would you prefer to have some replanting or fence line?
Okay, right now the trees are, there's a line of them closer to the parking lot that are dying. They're about half gone. And when I say 6, we could probably, there's a few more in there, make it 10 trees in total. Those have to come out, no matter what. And then beyond that, there's some more trees. Sure, leave a few up. I don't have a problem with that, as long as the underbrush is taken up, because that's where the problem lies, especially on the weekends. And of course, we use the church Sunday morning, so on Sunday morning, we see the results of Saturday night.
Certainly.
Thank you. So this letter that Mr. Pastors has put forward, it'll go to the developer as well? If I could just have clarification.
we can certainly forward it on to the developer if that's council's choice. However, the variance itself really has nothing to do with the trees. The variance is whether or not the building form on the property is restricted to the existing format of an apartment building, or in the case if the variance is relaxed, it'll switch the development to a 15-unit patio home development. I will note that on the plan submitted as part of the development permit, it shows a row of 9 patio homes directly adjacent to the church property. So those trees will be gone. There will be very little room for trees when those 9 patio homes are constructed, 5.5 of which are directly adjacent to the church property.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Russell, again, please.
I feel like I'm on a roll.
Sorry, I didn't call the vote, did I? I will do that. Moved by Councillor Greer, then seconded by Councillor Chandler. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Sorry for that slip. Mr. Russell?
Certainly. If I may, Your Worship, for council consideration this evening is the issuance of a development permit, and this is at 155 Hearst Avenue East. This is for a 3-story mixed-use building with commercial on the ground floor and 10 residential units above. As part of the development permit, in order to improve the articulation of the building, there is a height relaxation requested. This may be issued through the development permit as it's in accordance with the development permit area guidelines. It was reviewed by the design panel. The proponent has done some changes in accordance with the design panel's recommendations. The permit is ready for issuance and for council consideration this evening.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. We have a question.
Just to staff there, so for this property there, it looks like there's 8 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms. And for that they have 10 parking spots allotted for it. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so with 18 bedrooms, what is the requirements for parking spaces in a building like this? Like what would be the minimum requirements?
So in the downtown, it's 1 per dwelling unit. Anytime we have apartment as an exclusive use, it's 1 per dwelling unit. Where the use in the zone is multifamily residential, then it's 1.5 per dwelling unit.
And in this one, it has a mixed commercial space as well with it.
That is correct.
How does that affect the?
They're providing cash in lieu of parking in this case.
Okay, so what would be the requirement for parking spaces with the commercial space there?
In the downtown, if memory serves, it is 1 per 60 square meters of gross floor area of the commercial space.
So for this property, and they have two parking spots then for their commercial space.
Yes.
And could you just confirm they have 2 of them are going to be rapid charging, or is it 1? I see just 2. I see conflicting information here on a couple pages.
I'm just trying to recall. I know there was at least 1. I'd have to.
It's on page 103. I see they mention in 2 parking spots.
I believe it is 2. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Russell, it's your night.
If I may, Your Worship, for council consideration this evening is an introduction for the Parksville Lawn Bowling Club's application for a liquor primary club license. The license would allow the Parksville Lawn Bowling Club to serve alcohol to their members or guests at their facility on Stanford Avenue. Their hours of operation are stated from noon till midnight daily, and the recommendations are as per the agenda.
We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Chandler, second by Councillor Fraz. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Mr. Russell?
For council consideration this evening is a liquor primary license at Unit 109 at 425 Stanford Avenue East. This would allow proceeding with notice to allow for a patio at the Mount Arrowsmith Brewing Company at the front of their premises.
Do I have a mover and a seconder for the motion?
So moved.
By Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Greer. Any discussion on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. You're still up, Mr. Russell.
If I may, Your Worship, for council consideration is a zoning and amendment bylaw draft and a background report covering the Jensen block. And so the recommendation is to receive it for information this evening. If council wishes to advance it, it could pass a motion to advance it to the statutory process or refer it back to staff for further clarification.
I need a mover and a seconder for the Councillor Greer, seconded by Councillor Fraz. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. You can take a rest now. Mr. Butterworth, would you please give us the background on this issue?
Yes, Your Worship. I'll take a little more time on this just because it's, for some of the council members, it's their first time going through a budget amendment. So under Section 165 of the Community Charter, Council is permitted to make changes to their adopted financial plan. Our financial plan was adopted in May of 2018, and in October, amendments approved by the previous council were adopted as budget amendments. Since that time, other budget amendments need to be reflected in the adopted financial plan. The amendments are shown on page 157 to 159 of the agenda package, and some of these amendments are the result of council resolutions, and some of the changes are initiated by staff. So I'll briefly go over these. The changes include, for the 2018 budget, I increased the investment revenue to reflect higher interest rates this year and higher cash balances from unspent capital funds. We transferred funds from the software contingency to provide funding for the PCTC forum audio upgrades. Hopefully the wires will be long enough. Transfer of funds from various budgets to IT minor capital to upgrade room 250 to accommodate IT staff, and transfer of funding from council contingency budget to special events budget for the Alberni Highway Christmas light installations. Increase to the Shelley Road intersection upgrade budget based on the lowest tender. This increase is 99% offset by funding from grants and development funds. We moved Forsyth Avenue Storm and Water Project consultings forward from 2020 to 2018 to match some other work that was going on Pym Street, I believe. Added Springwood Well developer contribution and adjusted the Water and Sewer Fund administration charge. So those are the changes to 2018. For 2019, we added the community park performance venue for $1.2 million with offsetting matching grant and donation revenues. And for the 2021 budget, we added the community park gathering place for $600,000 as per the community park master plan, and added in 73% grant funding for that project that we've applied for. And the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Discussions. Councillor Greer.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering how we can improve this, being such a new council, and this is our first turnaround without ever seeing a budget ourselves. I find it difficult to make decisions and approve something that the last council did. Maybe you could speak to that?
The one item, or there's a couple items that came from the last council, one of them being the increase to the traffic lights at Shelley Roads, and that is 99% funded by development contributions and grants and donations or grants. So hopefully that will not be an issue. The previous council did approve that when the tender came to them. And the other ones, I believe a number of the other ones, such as the Community Park Performance Venue, was approved by this council. The Community Park Gathering Place, I think that's the first time this is coming to council, but it's part of the grant application that's going through in January, so we need to get it into the budget. The other changes are relatively minor. Some of them are internal changes where we moved money from one budget, one renovation budget to another one to accommodate the moving the IT staff into one area along with the GIS staff. The software contingency is part of a budget that we have every year for various software things that aren't anticipated, such as, in this case, the audio upgrade for the forum. We did have it in the budget, but the funds were not enough for when we went out for tenders on what it was, so we have the software contingency in the budget that we're transferring some of the money so that these audio can be appropriately updated in here. We moved a couple jobs forward to correspond with some work that was happening on Pym Street, or at least the consulting on that work was moved forward. And I think that is most of the changes. With the amended budget, the accumulated surplus at the end of 2018, as per the budget, is $5,844,000. And in 2022, it's $1,455,000. They haven't changed very much from what the final budget plan was from these changes. They're relatively minor changes as far as impact to the taxpayer.
Just to follow up, yeah, I just find it difficult. I would think I don't recall in previous years at the first council meeting that we would have to look at approving many items on the budget. And I think with such a new council this year, I think we should have a look and have some time to look at this. I don't know whether there's any rush towards this or not, but maybe we could table it for the next council meeting.
Your Worship, if I may, these aren't new budget items. We are required by law to make sure that all of the changes and things that take place over the course of a year after the budget is adopted are adopted by council for an amendment to make sure that they're in the budget. So this isn't part of the 2019 budget process, which will come forward to council early in the year. This is a legislative requirement that we have to do so that anything that changes in the budget over the course of the year has to be adopted by council in order to fall within that year's budget. It's a legal requirement. We're not asking council to consider a budget. These are things that have come up from this council and a couple of changes that have taken place since May when the financial plan was finally adopted by council. So legally, we have to do this in order to make sure these changes are appropriately reflected in the current budget, the 2018 budget.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Through your worship to the Director of Finance, if I may. Thank you. On the Community Park Gathering Place, my question is why is it been forwarded to 2021, and yet we're applying for a grant proposal for January, which is going to be 2019, and why would it not be forwarded at least to the 2019, or is construction not expected to start until then? Or I'm just wondering why it's been bumped all the way down to 2021 and why we have to consider it as a budget inclusion into next year, basically, or is it just because of the grant proposal? Thank you.
If I may, Your Worship, yes, it's just because of the grant proposal, and I believe the grant proposal has to be completed by 2024, the work. So in this case, the gathering place, it was thought that 2021 was the appropriate place to do to to go forward with that project, providing we get the grant funding. So, and the grant funding application has to go in January, and the money has to be in the budget in order to apply for the grant funding. And currently, it's not in our 5-year financial plan because it came out of the Community Park Master Plan. So this is putting it into the plan with the grant funding. It will come forward back to council, and if the grant funding did not happen, then it would be council's decision at that time whether they will fund it out of some other way or do something else with the project.
If I may, through the chair, Your Worship, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with approving a item or a community park gathering place when we haven't even been presented with any layouts or drawings or conceptual drawings or plans for it. So basically, you're asking for us to consider a $600,000 allocation for this, and yet we don't even know what this looks like. And I'm really not comfortable putting this through. I understand that there's grant application deadlines, but without actually having seen the project itself, I'm really not too excited about approving in something sight unseen.
CAO, please.
Your Worship, through to Council, tomorrow in your orientation, we're going to go through, Mr. Butterworth's going to go through an overview of how municipalities finance. We have to do a 5-year plan. We're mandated by law to do a 5-year plan. But that doesn't mean that in the intervening years, that plan can't change. So right now, we are required, in order to qualify for the grant funding, to put the gathering place within the 5-year financial plan. If we receive the grant, then it will offset the funding for that gathering place, and so the gathering place will be less than $200,000. For council to, if we don't get that funding, when it comes time, say in 2020, to do the next financial plan, the next 5-year plan, council may choose at that time to take it out. There is nothing that says that just because you have it in the financial plan in a future year that you actually have to complete that project. Capital projects come and go and change as funding is allocated, as council's priorities are determined. But if they're not in the financial plan at some level, then we don't qualify for any grant funding. So you will have an opportunity to review the plans, review the tenders before you make a final decision on it. Right now, you're basically creating a placeholder for that funding in the event that the project goes forward. That help?
The only question I have on that, if we apply for a grant for the gathering place and was approved to get that grant, I would think that the grant providers would be somewhat disappointed if at some time this council said, well, we actually don't want to use it for a gathering place, we want to use it for some other task. Would they not have a right to say, well, we want our grant money back?
Oh, well, you would not be able to use it for another task. It would have to go to the grant or gathering place, or we would have to return the funding to the province, and they would reallocate it to another local government.
Yeah, that's just my point. And then effectively, by applying for the grant, we're actually approving the project.
No,
well, we're approving looking for funding for the project then.
Well, we have submitted an application for a grant. It is tied to the Performing Arts Center grant, which is also why we've put that in the budget.
I understand that.
But if council chooses not to go forward with the project, you don't have to go forward with the project. And that is also making the assumption that we get funding. There is no guarantee that we would actually get the grant funding. But without that money in the budget, then it would kill the grant application for both the gathering place and the Performing Arts facility.
Councillor Wilson.
Your Worship, through to CAO, I just want to ask how it is that you came up with $600,000. Could it be $500,000 or?
Your Worship, before we create any funding, we have staff who, as part of their responsibilities, look at design elements, talk to contractors, talk to designers, and they create a budget for the project that we are quite confident would meet the needs of the design work. That's an operational requirement. It is not something that we would normally come to council with.
All right. Any other questions? Then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It's passed. Mrs. Comas, it's your turn.
Yes, Your Worship. On behalf of your communications, I am before you is a report on the Community Spirit Award. This is the second year of this award program that the Chamber of Commerce has created. Last year, Council chose to nominate an individual for the award. It is entirely up to Council if you choose to do that. The cost is approximately $1,400. And the award recognizes a business or individual that demonstrated exceptional commitment to developing and encouraging community spirit and pride. So if the nomination of that individual would be done by council, and the award would be presented at the Chamber of Commerce event. And the recommendations are as per the staff report. Yes, Your Worship. Beginning in 2016, as a way of organizing some of the things that Council was requesting us to do, we created a list of tabled and referred matters, which is provided in the staff report. The report outlines projects that have yet to be started, are in progress, and have been completed in the last couple of years. I wanted to bring this forward to Council early in your term so that we could have a determination from you as to whether or not these are projects you wish to continue with based on your priorities, or whether you would wish to make changes, or whether you would like to just not proceed with this kind of a project. So the recommendation is that the report be received, and what we as staff are hoping is that arising from that, adopting receipt of the report, that you would provide us with direction as to how you wish to proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, you have to receive. Okay. I'll second it.
A vote on the receipt, and then Councillor Greer Rising.
Thank you, Your Worship. Motion arising from the discussion. Many of the items listed on the table and referred list are outdated and historic in nature. Councillors are free to raise issues of concerns at each regular meeting, and if there are priority items predating September 1st, 2018, members may make a motion at any time to reactivate the projects with council approval. Given the demands on staff time and length of time since that has transpired, since many items were added, I recommend taking action only on the recent items. I would like to make the following motion: that council provide direction to staff to retain only those resolutions approved by council after September 1, 2018 on the table and referred list, and remove all other items from departmental work plans.
This is direction provided to staff arising from the consideration of a staff report. A notice of motion is something that is different from that.
Yeah, we're going to make a decision on this tonight.
A notice of motion would be a brand-new independent item that a councillor would like to introduce, give an opportunity for thought and consideration, and then deal with it at the following council meeting.
Through your worship, if I may ask for a rereading of that motion from Councillor Greer, if we could, please.
You want the entire thing or just a motion? Okay. That council provide direction to staff to retain only those resolutions approved by council after September 1, 2018 on the tabled and referred list, and remove all other items from departmental work plans.
Thank you, Your Worship. Directed to our CAO. Could you give me a little bit of what Councillor Greer's motion would end up happening?
As a result of the motion passed, staff would continue to work on those items that were adopted by council from September 1 forward. All of the other items that were on the to-do list that haven't been started yet would not be started, and the ones that are in progress are basically the ones that have been adopted since September 1st, so those would continue. So the in progress will continue, and anything from September 1 to date would continue, but anything prior to September 1 would not.
If they hadn't been started?
If they haven't been started, and basically the ones that have been started are fairly recent ones.
Can I speak to?
Certainly.
Thank you. I'm not sure how to address this. I think that everything that is on this list are important. The staff are incredibly busy, so this is a document in planning and in works and in progress, or some of them are completed. And I think that that council should not be in a rush at this point in time, and maybe take an hour or so a meeting around the table to discuss what some of these items are, so that you familiarize yourselves with them.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think at any time, once these are canceled, but we could always bring them back at another time. But the idea was to clean this backlog of work for the staff so we can move ahead quickly in the new year. But any of those items that you feel are important can be brought back at any other time. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any other discussion? I'm going to weigh in on this one for just a little bit if I could. The idea here is so that we can clean up a backlog of things. If you look at that list, you've got items such as direct staff to look at whether we should buy more than 25 city pins for any one item. There's a lot of little things on there. Anything that hasn't been started that was direction to staff since September 1st probably isn't the highest of priorities for the staff to be working on. And if it is, we can always bring back what we need to cover that. But the reality here is that we got to start with a clean slate so that staff has a direction to work towards with us. And I believe that this is a good motion. I believe that it needs to be implemented so that we can clean house from prior to September 1st. I mean, if it hasn't been done, it's just never going to get there. It was just sit on the pile forever and a day. And why do we need all of that on that list? Let's make it nice, neat, easy to work with. Give the city a direction. Tell them that we're looking at what is important and what's not important, and let's get on with business that we bring to the table. So that's mine. Council.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had a chance to look through a number of these items, and there's 3 or 4 on there that I'm definitely interested in bringing back later. But at this point, I really like the process, and I think it would be a really good thing to just clean the slate a bit and move forward.
If my only suggestion would be if this motion is passed, I would just suggest to staff, if you've already started working on some reports and so forth and some materials, please don't destroy it, because we may bring it back for further consideration. We don't want you to have to start all over again. But if everything was just put on hold and you didn't pursue it any further, I think that would be the intent here. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. A question about if we do this. So on page 6 of 24, there's an item from August the 8th of this year. And this is just basically bringing the paperwork. This particular project is completed, but it's saying that the paperwork isn't in. Okay, thank you.
At the last council meeting, council referred the matter of the request from ECHO for support in a grant application for their child care planning program. And staff have been working back and forth with the with ECHO representatives, and the ECHO representatives have pretty much completed the application. And so if council adopts this report and the recommendations contained in it, then early in the new year, we will submit the application to them, to the province on their behalf.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through the administration, there's no cost to us in this or time. Is there much time involved in this at all?
Not at this point in time. We made it very clear to them that we really didn't have the resources necessary to actually complete the application and answer all of the questions and provide all of the criteria for their plans. And they have done that, and they have assured us that they will have that completed early in the new year. So if that's the case, and we just have to send their application in on their behalf because it requires a municipal umbrella, then we won't be doing anything beyond
Good,
that.
thanks.
I'd just like to mention that I'm strongly in support of this motion here. With this application, it would be looking to bring $25,000 for Parksville towards doing a needs assessment for childcare in our community. And it's my understanding that Qualicum Beach has also started pursuing this, which would bring $50,000 to our region. So amongst that, I think we'd be able to have ECHO facilitate a really good needs assessment for our region to help support families. So thank you.
Did the region, do we know? I didn't see anything at the board level.
The RDN has, they've been in communication about it, but so far there has been no movement forward on it yet.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Oh. Councillor Chandler.
Yes, Your Worship. Yeah, I am too very strongly in support of this motion. I think it's actually a great thing for the community, and definitely in need.
Okay. Could I have call the question, please? All in favor? Opposed? It was from the last meeting. sorry, thought I pushed it. 3 readings, Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 2018 number 1541.1 to amend Council Procedure Bylaw 2018 number 1541. And number 2 is a 5-year financial plan amendment bylaws 2018 to 2022 number 1544.2 to amend the 2018 to 2022 financial plan. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendations? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Chandler. Discussions? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Bylaws, final adoption. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2018 number 2000.117. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Greer, second by Councillor O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. New business. Does any member of council have any new business? Councillor O'Brien.
Your Worship, if I may at this time offer a request for a motion this time. I realize that to do without providing a prior notice of motion, which I was unable to do, I require approval from council. The motion is going to be regarding the regulation of solicitation for the downtown business improvement area, and it's needs to be done in a timely fashion. So I'd like to introduce it tonight if I may, but I would require the approval and consent of the sitting council.
Need a motion for that? No, just a vote? Yeah. All right, we'll take a vote on whether we will allow Councillor O'Brien to bring it through. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's carried. Now you can bring your motion.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I would like to put forth the following motion, please, that under the regulation of solicitation in downtown business improvement area, that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw for council's consideration to regulate solicitation in Parksville's downtown business improvement area and facilitate the safe, efficient, and unimpeded flow of pedestrian and vehicular traffic in city rights-of-way.
Need it again? Could you? No, yeah, we just want it read a second time, that's all. It's not a second reading, but read a second time.
More than happy to help. That under the regulation of solicitation in downtown business improvement area, that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw for council's consideration to regulate solicitation in Parksville's downtown business improvement area and facilitate the safe and efficient and unimpeded flow of pedestrians and vehicular traffic in city rights-of-way.
Okay, I need a seconder for that motion. Councillor Patterson has seconded it. Discussion. Do you have to get that? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. If Councillor O'Brien could give a little bit more feedback on bringing forward.
As somewhat of a background regarding this situation, council is receiving numerous complaints from downtown business owners and customers of these businesses about the increasing volume and persistence of people soliciting money and in some instances impeding patrons from going about their business. Several complaints have been received about solicitation occurring near banks and automatic telling machines and up and down the business improvement area district. The primary purpose of city streets is to facilitate efficient pedestrian and vehicular traffic flows and provide unimpeded access to private businesses and residences. As a result of these public concerns, I'd like to make the following motion with the approval of council, and the reason being is that this is from seeking legal counsel, as we have through our CAO, is the strongest handhandling bylaw that we can make at this time. And so we want to put as much teeth into it as we can, but not be subject to a court challenge. But at the same time, this is it's a good start to try and keep the problem that's occurring with more regularly downtown. So this is where we can start it, and I feel it's essential that we get on with it right away because of recent occurrences and continuing occurrences.
Through to the CAO, would there put any limitation on people using the Christmas light plug-ins there downtown, like so that people aren't coming down and you know, plugging in their appliances on the streets? Would this stop that from happening?
Unlikely to stop that from happening, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Frass, that has been an ongoing issue. We have the same problem here in this building and outside of this building. So short of actually, I mean, what we did on the outside of this building was we actually covered up all of the outlets. So short of covering up the outlets, there's really nothing we can do with that.
Could we not include that into our bylaw, that without the permission to be using the city's hydro, that they're not plugging in their appliances?
We can certainly look at doing that. It's not just people who unplug their appliances. We've actually got situations where people plug in their scooters, like their electric wheelchairs. It's amazing what people choose to plug into a public building or facility. I mean, we can try, and we can look at it.
Part of that, just walking around downtown, I already seen that they're already being damaged.
They're damaged every year. It was one of the reasons why we took them out of the median and took them out of downtown in the first place, was because of that. But with the advent of the Christmas lights, we need electricity, and so we had to put them back in. So. But we will do our best to address that.
Councillor Patterson and Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to the CAO. As I have a business in the BIA, is this a conflict of interest for me to weigh in on this?
No.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
If I may suggest that on the, as to what Councillor Frass has already mentioned anyways, the use of the outlets, the receptacles for the Christmas trees in the BIA area actually constitutes theft. Straight and simple, it's theft of electricity. So the thing is that I believe that if anyone is caught doing that, they could be charged with theft. So I think either our bylaw enforcement officers, as well as their police enforcement officers, could be called to advise that this is actually theft happening. And we're going to consider pressing charges, and that way it may deter it somewhat. Recognize as well that it isn't just the city of Parksville that's actually having this problem, that the downtown businesses as well that have weatherproof outlet receptacles are also having a problem with the theft of electricity. And as you say, you'd be amazed what gets plugged into it. But the thing is that recognize too that I understand from very good electrical contractors that you can get locking weatherproof outdoor receptacles as well, which maybe we should be considering, because as mentioned by Councillor Frass, they're already being damaged already, and I think maybe we should just take the extra step of doing, I believe they're called vandal-proof or theft-proof electrical fixtures, and make sure that they're put in the budget, because this is going to be an ongoing issue. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
I really like that. Did you know that there's still some money left in council contingency that hasn't been allocated in 2018, and this is our last council meeting? So if anyone wanted to spend some money and think about having some locks on and put forward a motion. Oh, wait. Have to ask council. But I'm okay with having it for next year.
I think in consideration of the fact that everybody knows that we're trying to get even more lighting in the downtown area for next year, why don't we carry that contingency over till next year and make sure that when we do go for it for next year, that it'll be a consideration of converting our existing receptacles as well as adding new ones, all under the vandal and theft-proof model. Would that work?
Our CFO just had a heart attack, so. I think it's a good idea that we are moving forward with a panhandling type of a bylaw here. There is an act, it's the Street Safe Act, or one of those combinations of words that do dictate, for people's knowledge and for the audience's knowledge, it says that they cannot panhandle within 15 feet of an ATM machine. They can't panhandle to your car. So if you're standing at, and we've had it at the Tim Hortons drive-through, where some guy's out there with a sign at the end of the drive-through, he's actually breaking the law and can be charged for doing that. And plus, there's other rules in there. I think there's one other area that I'm forgetting, but there's 3 or 4 things. What we want to do is take that and stiffen it up even more, as much as we can, without creating this this challenge in the Supreme Court. We don't want to end up going to the Supreme Court for something as such as a panhandling law if we can avoid it. But at the end of the day, we need to let them know that we mean business and that the bylaws officers have some teeth in being able to talk to these individuals, because quite frankly, they know. The one fellow that was talked to yesterday or the day before, he says, well, I know I can be, as long as I'm 15 feet away from the ATM machine, I can stand here and panhandle. I mean, that they know the rules better than our own people in most cases. They're trained. There must be a training school somewhere where they send for this kind of stuff. It is unfortunate, but it's almost true. So in my mind, we've got to do whatever we can, even if it seems like a very little thing. We've got to just keep adding to it and pecking away to try to get this back under control. We will end up with a ghost town in downtown Parksville if we don't start to control the panhandling and the aggressive behaviors of some individuals that are down there right now. So this is a very, very important start to getting this under control, in my mind. Having said all that, I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. Any other new business that we want to talk? Councillor Greer, I'm almost afraid.
Yeah, and this is an official challenge to the mayor for the lawn bowling championship that we hold every year, and this has been going on for several years. And I have my list of players, so there'll be no tampering with my players. It's a team, and it has to be made up of staff or council.
I will make you a deal. I will bet you $100.
That's the bet.
And the money will go to their fundraising.
That's the bet.
That's
exactly.
It.
That's gone the same every year.
You're on.
Am I on?
You're on.
Don't interfere with my players, though. I'll give you a list. I'll give you a list tomorrow.
Oh, okay. That's good. Any notices of motion? Councillor. Okay, sorry.
Your Lordship, I had actually received in the mail my dog license and business license, and at 84 cents a piece. I wondered if there's any way that we could look at to review, or maybe we have reviewed in the past, a paperless scenario of receiving our bills paperless, and a possible option to pay them through a banking app.
We are working on that, Your Worship.
Excellent. I feel that would save several $1,000s, especially in a dog-friendly area like Parksville. It's definitely a major savings. So, thank you.
To the CAO, any idea on how long you think that will be?
It should be in 2019. IT is working on the software to make it compatible with all of our internal systems right now. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?